Redditors assemble. r/askreddit. Long-haul truckers. What's the creepiest, most paranormal thing you've seen on the road at night? Creepiest. Driving I-40 I-30 through Texas and Arkansas, I would see what looked like animals, faces popping out of the bushes, but longer than a glance proved nothing there. They had just paved the highway, and there was hardly any traffic. I was dead tired. It was super dark. Highway hypnosis, I suppose. Paranormal. When I went to local driving, my route ran near an air reserve base in Indiana, so you'd see planes and helicopters pretty often. One night, about 2 a.m., I was headed to pick up another load when I saw a bright green light in the corner of my windshield. It was too low to be an aircraft. It moved pretty slowly, then darted, and I lost sight of it behind some trees I drove by. Typical I saw UFO shit, but I still think it was just a helicopter or a jet that I saw at the prefect angle that turned after a takeoff. The jet pilots have broken the sound barrier over town a couple times in the past. Sonic boomed, so a jet flying abnormally isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. Just batshit crazy. Driving south on I-75 in the winter in Ohio, I witnessed the compact car like a Cobalt or similar get on the on-ramp to merge into I-75 north and lost control. They went sideways, fell at least 6 feet off the ramp and onto the shoulder of the interstate, landing on all 4 wheels, spun 360 degrees, and then proceeded to merge into traffic like it was freaking nothing. Blew my freaking mind. The CB radio was going freaking nuts for about 5 minutes. Holy shit, WHO else just freaking saw that, etc. That last story was somebody driving in real life like they do in GTA. I drove by a marsh every night when I was going home from work. One night I saw a car pulled over with hazards on. Dude was head to toe covered in blood. No crash, no injury, just covered in blood. Maybe he just had one hell of a bloody nose. When my father was younger, they had a few animals. When they took them to get slaughtered, they would bring back meat for personal use. Rest was sold, and a few buckets of blood for a few different uses, blood pudding, etc. One day, my uncle had to brake hard due to animals running across the road. No crash, no injury, but he ended up covered in blood. Inside of car looked like a gruesome murder scene. I was 23, my newly married husband and I decided driving team would be a fun adventure after college, rather than jumping into the 9-5. I was down in Arizona, on a long stretch of nothing about 4 a.m. when a guy pulled up next to me waving his CB. I never left mine on. Listening to those guys BS was irritating. I turned on my CB and he told me I had a blown tire. I thanked him, figuring I would stop at the next truck stop. He kept harassing me to pull over and check my tire for a good 40 miles. I finally got to a next town and pilot truck stop. Got out and checked my truck. No blown tires anywhere. No clue what that guy would have done to me. But so glad I trusted my gut and didn't stop. Not paranormal, but I have plenty of stories as a young woman on the road. By reading all these comment threads, I've come to realize how much I need to learn from life. Somebody says something like that to me, I'm stopping instantly. It's a little different in one of those trucks. You've got 18 wheels. You can go with one flat, or blown, missing, tire for a while. Now, in your car, you'd notice something was wrong right away. But always trust your gut, and don't stop until a well-lit, populated area. I'm a truck driver in the UK, was driving through rural Scotland one night going down a country lane. All of a sudden I start to see flashing lights come through the trees. Lights of all colors flashing through the trees and causing some really freaky looking shadows on the road. I'm not a believer of aliens or anything, but my first thought was UFOs. Safe to say I put my foot down and got out of there. Found out the next day it was rave happening in a field, but at the time it didn't half scare me. I was coming back home from a trip from Michigan and I saw these people wearing cult-like robes, one in town, one on a highway, and one in a park, all staring at me. Did you approach the dog park? You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to acknowledge it either. The council would like to see for education purposes. I seem to remember one of our interns sneaking in. She had no end of trouble, what with all the dimensional, temporal travel, etc., re-education through labor. Myself and 2 friends had to drive from Laredo, TX to Baton Rouge, LA one night in my Ford van. It was about 2 a.m. There was a particularly long and dark section of highway just outside Laredo. No buildings, towns or lights for about 50 miles. I was in the right lane coming up on a truck and pulled out into the left passing lane. As I was slowly overtaking this long truck, My peripheral vision caught a sudden movement of this big truck towards the right shoulder. I saw the truck was swerving to avoid hitting a person dressed in all white. White face, whose arms were folded across the chest and eyes were closed as they walked across the highway. I swerved to the left and barely missed this ghostly-looking person with my passenger mirror. Can still remember seeing that the eyes were closed. That's how close we came to hitting this person. Laredo TX. You could have stopped right there and I would have agreed on the creepy part. No need for further explanation once Laredo is mentioned. Why is that? I have worked on Laredo a few times there and the whole town has an uneasy feel to it. Everything seems calm, but you know a lot of shady things are happening. This is my father's story and he wasn't a long-haul trucker, but rather 18-year-old gas station attendant in the late 70s, and without a certain long-haul trucker I probably wouldn't be here. The gas station was 24 hours and my dad was the only one working the night shift. 11/7 I think. A guy comes in and just gives him the creeps. Seems sketchy. He was wearing tight jacket, pants, and you could tell he had something in his pants under the jacket. It was during the summer and was warm, so why is he wearing a jacket to begin with? It was later confirmed he was on drugs. A lot of truck drivers used this station, as it was the only one open 24 hours for a long stretch of the highway. They also had a big lot where they let truckers park and sleep or take a break. On this night at this time it was just my dad, sketchy dude, and one trucker in there he kinda knew, as in, came in frequent enough to be conversational, and asked if he'd stay in the station and hang out until sketchy dude left. Well, after looking at the stocked shelves for several minutes while sneaking peeks at my dad behind the counter, the sketchy guy eventually looked fed up and got into his blue car and sped off. Cool trucker guy hung out with my dad a little longer until another couple of guys came in to use the booth as they had to eat a sandwich. I should also point out this was pretty middle of nowhere rural southeast United States and the 1970s. CBN landline was it. My dad only had a landline in the store. Dad did not have any protection or weapon of any kind. So the hours pass and my dad had shaken off the paranoia when all of a sudden this truck driver guy in a car comes hauling ass into the lot, jumps out, and sprints into the store hollering he needs a phone. He didn't have a CB nor did he see a phone at the other station. He also wasn't familiar with the area and my dad's station was the first place he found. Calls 911 to report that he had walked in on a gas station 40 miles back. Next closest station, to find the attendant shot and dead. No one else around. And the only other piece of information is that a blue car was speeding out of the lot when the trucker pulled in. Apparently they eventually apprehend the guy in the blue car. My dad confirms it was sketchy dude from earlier in the night, and they charge him with murder and armed robbery. To the long-haul trucker who waited around with my dad that night, thanks and hope you're keeping it real. Also worth adding that apparently sketchy guy in blue car was already a bad apple who was either being looked for or on probation or something. He was in the system. Why do you think he didn't shoot your dad? Obviously the trucker was there, but it seems easy enough to just kill two people if needed. Did you ever find out the creep's motive? Or did the trucker have some sort of defense weapon? Not 100% sure, but I'm guessing sketchy guy didn't want a 2-on-1 scenario. Maybe the cool trucker guy was an imposing figure? I've never asked what he looked like. Surely my dad wasn't, as he was a skin and bones teenager with a poofed up fro. He looked like a Q-tip. Maybe sketchy guy actually didn't have murder on his last list, but rather wanted the easy stick-up and cash grab job? As for what went down in the other gas station, I guess shit hit the fan unfortunately. Maybe the other attendant tried to defend himself. My father didn't have any weapons, but I'm guessing some attendants kept one? Yeah, that robbery idea sounds pretty plausible. You described the creep as pretty nervous, so I could definitely imagine him pulling the trigger if something didn't go right. Seems like your dad got pretty darn lucky. My stepdad is a truck driver and I asked him this question and he gave me 3 answers. In Winston-Salem, NC, a guy was fapping while driving by his truck and my stepdad threw his water bottle at him. Another time he said he was up near Oregon and he was the only one on the freeway at the time since it was around 2 a.m. and something large and pale swooped down a few yards in front of his truck and swooped back up into the tree line. While driving at 70 miles per hour, a tire rolled ahead of him and went across the median, nearly hitting another car. I want to know more about the pale swoopy thing. Legends of the swoopy pale are few and far between. It is thought that its swoopy paleness is enough to kill most who see it, but the few who live to tell the tale all say the same thing. It's as pale and it swoops. The spoopy swoopy. The spoopy swoopy is actually a slightly different type of swoopy native to northern Ontario. The swoopy pale is a close relative. However, the two can in fact interbreed to create one of 2 types of offspring. the horrifying spoopy pale or the useless swoopy swoopy. I was listening to a radio station when this trucker called in. He said he saw a lot lizard get out of one truck, douche with a bottle of grape soda, and get into the next truck. I'm only an amateur gynecologist, but that seems like a sure way to get a yeast infection, and diabetes, and AIDS, and ants. Do you want ants? This is how you get ants. What's a lot lizard? Using context clues, it sounds like a hooker at truck stops. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button and leave a comment which story you liked the most. Subscribe and hit the bell notification for updates on our latest videos. And don't forget to check the links in the description box for more awesome content.